Welcome back to Don't Waste the Chaos, the podcast where we dive into the real, messy, and ever-changing world of business, leadership, and people ops. I'm your host, Kerri Roberts, and today we're tackling a topic that every business owner and HR leader has to navigate, and that's employee benefits. So joining me is Jesse, a strategic benefits advisor at Caravus, who has spent nearly 13 years helping businesses find the right balance between cost and coverage when it comes to healthcare. Jesse specializes in crafting strategic and cost-effective benefit solutions, mixing traditional coverage with innovative non-insurance options to create real value for businesses and their employees. So in this conversation, Jesse and I are going to discuss the biggest healthcare challenges that small and mid-sized businesses face today, shifts in employee expectations when it comes to benefits, how to stay competitive, and much more. So if you're a business leader looking to offer competitive benefits without breaking the bank, this episode is packed with insights just for you. And just like every other person that I have on that I interview, I have worked directly with Jesse and his team at Caravus. And so this isn't just like a pie in the sky idea. I have seen this work specifically for my clients at Salt and Light. So I'm super excited to bring this to you today. So let's go ahead and jump in. Jesse, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, Kerri, thanks so much for having me. And like you said, very much value our partnership and looking forward to getting into this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we're going to bring a ton of value. So let's jump in and start with the state of the healthcare market. From your perspective, what are the biggest challenges for, let's say, small to mid-sized businesses that they're facing in today's healthcare market?
Yeah, good question. I know that health insurance is everybody's favorite topic. We get so much positive feedback from the news and everything else. But I think if we were to kind of paraphrase the state of the healthcare market in one word, I think today that word would be challenging. And I say that due to the cost and the cost pressures that are set forth by the healthcare industry. And this dates back to the ACA about 12 years ago and even prior to that. So I think the ACA cleaned up some of the things. And of course, in doing that, exposed some other challenges. And that's what we're working through here at Caravus every day, as well as all of our competitors. We're all in this collectively to make a better experience and to create a better attitude for our clients and consumers as a whole. But I think those cost pressures and the challenges and the red tape and all of those things that exist in our industry is leading to a transition. And what I mean by that is cost is going to create us to get more strategic, more creative, I think, in the market. And we're seeing a lot of that from the carriers, especially, Kerri, I know you work with, we all have a different definition, but small businesses. And so I know that that's defined differently, but we're seeing the insurance carriers in this industry now get more creative in the way they're rolling out products. I mean, pre-ACA, we had a lot of medically underwritten plans, different things like that. And that went away with the ACA. And it was great in the beginning. We have these community rated plans, different things like that. And then that became the high risk pool. And everybody that had an unhealthy population or problems within the organization kind of fell to the ACA plan as that creativity started to expand and we had different funding mechanisms, different products made available by the carriers. As we think about the limited number of medical carriers we have in the space, there's about 4 or 5, unfortunately. But within each of the carriers now, they each have 2 or 3 or 4 products. So really, our small number of insurance carriers bring a wide variety of products. And I think that's what the creativity's brought forth. But then beyond that is plan complexity. And so as we roll out new ideas and different things like that, it's like, wait a second, the consumers say it all the time. We didn't even understand what we had before. And now you're bringing XYZ opportunity to us. Sounds great, but I don't understand it. And then that administrator, the HR person, the business owner may bring that product to their team, their employees, and they get a lot of questions. And that's where I know you're valued very well and us very much in our niche market of health insurance, like to bring a lot of education. And so it's very important to us when we roll out even what we had existing or a new idea, a new opportunity to this organization, is that we get very deep in the weeds on education as much as they will allow us to. So from an education standpoint, we do a number of different things here. I know that our competitors in the industry do the same. So it's very important that we get out and educate people on what their options are, provide some guidance, and I think transparency is critical. And that pertains to the employees and the administrators, the HR folks, because they're getting these questions throughout the year and they want to support their staff. So As a whole, I think a challenging industry, but I think we're starting to see trend in a positive direction from a cost and transparency perspective.
Yeah, I agree. And you made me think of a couple of things while you were talking. And I just was reading an article this morning about like the fiduciary responsibility on behalf of the, let's say, the HR person, the payroll person on selecting benefits, and not to put, undue pressure on our HR folks. But one, that's one of the biggest line items on P&L is your employee benefit spend along with your compensation spend. And then two, this is like we're asking our employees, or essentially making our employees feel like we have thought of them. We've thought of the very best plan for the best dollars, their dollars that are coming out of their paycheck. And so I think an HR person really needs to slow down and learn. And I think so many times, especially for a small to mid-sized business, we're completely kind of blindly trusting our broker to bring the best tools to the table. And so even more reason to pick the right broker, because so many are selling plans to a small to mid-sized business and then just renewing them year over year and not necessarily like fighting for them in the market or evaluating what their goals are or truly understanding what the need is for that organization and where that organization is going. And so there's a lot of responsibility that falls on it. And I think HR folks, not intentionally, but they're shirking their responsibility a lot of times because they don't understand what goes into it. It is very complicated. And I would just encourage an HR person or a business leader to essentially force your broker to explain it to you. And again, if you don't get it, because this is vital information that you need to understand to best represent it. I actually think that we've already seen a few court cases against employers, large employers, on selecting insurance that maybe wasn't the best option for the employees, and the employees are having to spend more, and employees have brought suit. And I think like HR people need to be thinking about this and seeing this is happening in the marketplace and taking it really seriously. Like, what are your thoughts, or what do you see about in that area?
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and it's always so surprising to me. We say that a broker's on autopilot, and we run into these companies sometimes that say, well, we haven't heard from our broker in 12 months or 18 months or 2 years, or, hey, yeah, they're great. They send us renewal every year in the last 4 years has been positive or, within our budget. But that's definitely not how a broker should operate. I think it's very important to be consultative throughout the year. Plans change. Even if we're 6 months into a plan, they may roll out some resources, some bells and whistles and tools that employees might benefit from. I think one example that we give oftentimes is these carriers are starting to roll out like a reimbursement for a gym membership. And when we're on autopilot and we're not staying on top of these things, our same old plan feels like the same old plan, when a lot of times there's a lot more value that's there and is available. And so getting back to what you said on employees being disgruntled or not happy with the offering that they have, I think one of the trends that we're seeing in the space is empowering employees. I mean, I would find it very hard to believe that an employer of either 10 employees or 100 employees could make a choice on a single health plan that's going to meet the wants and needs of every employee and their dependents that they're going to be covering. And so I think we're seeing a shift somewhat from that single offering to a dual option or a triple option, depending on what the employer is wanting to do and what their population looks like and what the spread is in their group. And a lot of times, cost comes into play. We can deliver a plan that's going to be more affordable for the employees and the organization. And those employees that have a bunch of kids or medical needs or whatever it may be, maybe they know they're going to be better off to pay up and buy a buy-up plan or a more enhanced plan or a richer plan or whatever you want to call it. I think that's very important. I think it makes employees happy. And the way you deploy it's important, because then you're adding, again, another layer of confusion. But in doing that, I think it allows you to roll out some different things like technology and different ways to make plan decisions, tools that really makes the organization make that leap into the 21st century on the employee health plans, and just brings a broader opportunity to the employees. And so a lot of times we say, hey, we need to expand our benefit offering for this Fortune 500 type approach, where really maybe we don't need to add all the ancillary plans and all those different things. Maybe let's hone in on the medical, the dental, the vision, the core products, make sure that we really have dialed in what the employees want and need, and then start to expand. And every year we can add something new. Then we're constantly progressing this program. And I think that drives and builds some excitement on the health insurance side of things.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of opportunities there that a lot of people don't necessarily take. So let's talk about the independent advantage. And, my background is in an independent insurance agency. So I'm a huge believer, and I just want to jump into this a little bit deeper because there's so many organizations or individuals when it comes to personal insurance, but we'll kind of stay away from personal and stay
Yeah,
on the employer side
please.
of things, who don't understand the difference between an independent agent or brokerage versus a captive agency or brokerage. And so being an independent firm gives Caravus the flexibility to work with a variety of partners or insurance carriers. So talk to us about how this independence benefits the business owner when selecting healthcare plans for their employees.
I think it brings a lot of positives to us. Obviously, there's limitations as well, but to your point, we can work with any health plan, any partner, any add-on value, promotion, whatever it is that we wish. Now, if a company comes to us and says, we want absolute bottom dollar cost on every single thing, that's where we are able to go to the industry, the market, and say, hey, we want to get quotes from 20 ancillary carriers and 5 medical carriers and have all of this assortment of options. But typically, what we try to do is form strategic partnerships that really mold and allow us to deliver on the employee experience that we feel is paramount in making our clients happy and feel positive about their overall experience. So I think for us is we're really big on service. And I think a lot of our competitors would speak the same. I know I'm speaking through this Caravus lens, but we feel it's important to work with partners and carriers, payroll companies, PBMs, the pharmacy benefit managers, different technologies that will deliver on the service that allows us to turn around and deliver that to our end user and our clients. And so we partner obviously with all the medical carriers because there's a very limited number in the space, but we get pretty precise in how we're partnering on the ancillary side, as well as really taking into account our strategic partnerships when it comes to technology. And so we pick our partners very strategically, and we want to deliver a solution with our partners that are going to play along with us, if you will. So when we start talking about technology and payroll and carrier and integrations and all of these different things, it's really important to have partners that are on the same page. And so being an independent firm, we have the ability to go out and pick and choose the top rated partners, the top rated industries that we want to pair with and partner with and bring them together and kind of deliver this as a whole. And then we also have the ability to have a very detailed, unique, client-centric approach. We're not coming in and saying, hey, everything that we do is in this box, unpack it and hope it fits your need, client XYZ. Well, client 1 and client 2 may have completely different needs, wants, values, whatever it may be. So we like to go out and ask a lot of questions. What's working? What's not working? What's your goal in 5 years? What's your goal tomorrow? Where are you trying to go with this? Is it a big piece in your business? Is it retention? Is it hiring? And then we build a program around the feedback. And a lot of times we get the same thing that you kind of get, Kerri, is like, we don't know what questions to ask. So you tell us what we should be asking or provide advice. And we're happy to sit on that side of the table too and say, well, here's what we're seeing from different companies of your size, whether it's benchmarking data or contributions or waiting periods, all the way down to how many plans they're offering, how much they're contributing to the plan, what's their payroll schedule, all these different things. We're also able to bring, because we have the experience working with a number of businesses, not only in size, but industry to them as well. And then I think a big piece is being agile. We're not a huge ship, so we can steer pretty quick. And so it allows us to stay educated what the market's bringing, getting educated on it so we can then deliver on it, but then being nimble enough to make that change and shift as business and industry evolves.
Yeah. And that's a huge part of it. I think a major competitive advantage of yours for sure. So let's talk about trends a little bit. Have you noticed any shifts in what employees are looking for in their benefits packages and what you're hearing from employers? And how should businesses adapt to stay competitive in this space?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like the trends are changing all the time. It's like we check a box and then something else comes up, and that's what keeps us in business, I think. But it also keeps us honest and keeps us smart and on top of what's going on. So the biggest trend that I've seen over the last several years, like I mentioned earlier, is plan choice. Let the employees have a plan, a selection of plans that they can pick that makes the most sense for them. And then beyond that, I think we add on the ancillary stuff, the fun benefits, if you will, the pet insurance, all of those different things. But let's really hone in on where we're going to win. And I think bringing the choice, but then also the tools and the resources to make good and wise decisions. So having decision support tools, I think, are very important when it comes to expanding your offering, because as you know, Kerri, the first question you're going to get is, well, I'm married and I have 2 kids. Which plan's right for me? And nobody can answer that question better than that person can, but they need a little education and a little background to make that choice, especially if we start offering high deductible health plans versus traditional PPOs. That high deductible health plan cost oftentimes is going to look really, really nice until that first doctor visit. And then we get the question of, why did you let me sign up for this? So yeah. I think the education, really getting into the weeds, like I said earlier, and delivering that value benefits employees. And then just removing a lot of the bureaucratic barriers. There's so much red tape in our industry, step-based care and prior authorizations and all of these different things that we struggle with. They don't want that. They want it to go away. And I think being able to understand the industry as we do and our competitors do is bringing that level of service to somebody to get rid of all of the question marks that are going through their head when something comes up. And then employees want to understand their benefits. As much as they'll tell you they don't want to, they want to understand their benefits. Nobody likes to talk about health insurance. And oftentimes when we talk about health insurance, it's in a time of need and a tough time in somebody's life. And I think it's very important to not only educate on the front end, but give somebody an understanding of what they're signing up for, and then providing personalized support and advocacy. It's amazing. Our advocacy team here gets to know our clients and specific employees so well. We're like, hey, we want your employees to call our team. Don't call the 800 number on the ID card, because we get put on hold for 45 minutes. And then we talk to somebody and we can hang up the phone and we're like, I don't even know what was just said or what my next steps are. So I think that's another big thing today, is kind of having that concierge or the white glove service, the advocacy to stand beside our employees and their spouses and their dependents when something comes up. And our advocates would tell you they do everything from, hey, I'm locked out of a healthcare portal to check my deductible or get a new ID card, to I'm standing at the dentist office and they're telling me I don't have coverage, to, hey, I need to have an emergency surgery and my health plan is telling me this isn't approved or whatever it may be, and I need to write an appeal. And so having the team to deal through a number of different, very important problems and items, and being able to reason with different personalities, I think, and bringing an empathetic approach is what employees want, is because so many people sign up for this. They don't ever use it, which is great, until the day comes that they need it and they need help, some help, and they need to feel confident in their partner. And I think that's what employees want today.
Yeah, I agree. In the day and age of everything being automated, this is definitely a standalone service that is not. I mean, you all aren't necessarily looking for it from the outside looking in. It doesn't look like you're taking the efficient approach. You're taking the service focused approach in this. And I think that's huge. When I'm looking at, or when I'm talking to clients and tell them like, hey, I've got partners at Caravus and, here's what they do. They're always like, do they? I'm like, no, they really actually do. They're not going to just have you call the number on the back of your insurance card. And I understand why most brokerages do, because it's more efficient. And there are people at that carrier that can answer those questions. But you're right. You end up in a phone tree, and then you've got a person who has no relationship with you whatsoever. And so I love that you all do that. It's certainly a competitive advantage. And I definitely see that employees want that. I think more and more, we're all wanting to get back to the people side of things versus the automation. So I want to use AI when it makes sense, but I also want to talk to a person when I need to. So that's really good.
I think the AI thing is important. Like, I haven't touched on that yet, but it's coming. It's coming in every industry. And I think, not to get ahead of ourselves in this conversation, but I think ultimately AI is going to help us understand our population, our geographic, demographic, a number of different things, to bring very proactive type benefits to allow us to get care ahead of these problems being presented. So better outcomes, better results leads to cost savings. I think, and back to your first question, is the state of the industry. It's like, if we're doing this podcast 5 years from now, are we talking that health insurance is now a very proactive thing because AI is dialed in so much on an employer's population or even the individual person, the employee and their dependents to understand is like, and maybe I'm far out, but DNA tests and strands and understanding a person's biology, does that allow us to be very proactive where historically we go to the doctor when we're sick? And the reason that we have so many proactive incentives, if you will, today is because nobody proactively goes to the doctor. I mean, a large percentage of the population does not. We wait until we're sick and then we go get care. And so I think over time, AI is going to really dial us in as individuals, which is kind of scary to say, hey, these things are likely, and here is the care that you can do today to potentially prevent that 5 days from now or 5 years from now, which then should bend that cost curve and lower the cost over time for the health plan and the sponsor.
Yeah. And as much as, I use AI every single day in my business, but as much as I'd like to say like, oh, I don't want someone tracking my driving habits because I don't want, I don't want anybody reporting on that. I literally am wearing this Aura ring that I wear every minute of the day. Like I hate taking it off to charge it for 45 minutes once a week because I miss some data. And literally like we could take the data that I use for my Aura ring right now and plug it into a carrier and a carrier could underwrite me in a much more effective way. So I definitely think it's coming, whether we're scared about it or not. I think there's benefits to be had. And, there's things to take into consideration and be a cause for pause or whatever. But I think it's huge. So I love that. I could talk about AI all day long though. And I feel like not enough small to mid-sized business owners are truly embracing it. And my business coach, who's Dan Martell, he wrote Buy Back Your Time. He's awesome. And he said every single time we do anything, we should first think like, how would AI do this first?
Last time we talked, Kerri, you mentioned Dan and his book to me, and it's on my it's on my list.
Read it.
Probably an audio book because I'm in the car so much. But I want to dig into that. But I agree. I think AI it's not something we should put blinders on for. It's like the internet, the next big thing coming to the industry, and it's impacting us in so many positive ways. And of course, there's going to be uneasiness there too.
Yeah. I use it literally. I mean, like if you could see the right side of my screen right now, I've got ChatGPT open and the paid version too, with all of my bells and whistles inside of it, because then it literally knows my language. It's amazing. So yeah, I digress. I could talk about that constantly.
I hope I'm not competing with that ChatGPT because I'm going to sound really dumb here in a minute.
I mean, literally, it's so good. And when we're talking about benefits, like I've got a client who's very complex. They're an M&A firm. They're bringing on all of these different agencies. They're buying agencies and folding them in. So I take all of their benefits data and every single one of these firms. And then I'm like, do an analysis on all of the different benefits that are available at all of these different agencies and give me a recommendation as the umbrella organization about what we need to be offering. And I'm literally throwing spreadsheets that would take probably 6 to 7 hours for me to, first of all, set up and analyze, and then put proactive reporting and recommendations forward. It takes literally like 6 to 7 minutes for AI to give me a recommendation. Of course, I'm eyeballing it and like seeing if it makes sense, but it is an amazing starting place. And so I see this in so many different areas when it comes to insurance.
100%. It's crazy. I use it every day too. And it's not even related to insurance, so to speak. It's just everything and communication. And I'm big on technology. I've probably said it 100 times already, but I think that is going to sit at the core of technology in our world and a lot of worlds as we move forward. I'm excited to see where it goes, but sure, I'm a little hesitant too.
Yeah. I've got this printout and my Aura Ring data has been telling me that my heart rate variability is not high enough. And I'm assuming because my autonomic nervous system isn't calmed down. I'm a high stress individual. I've got a lot going on. So I got into AI and just said, like, write me a new workout plan to focus on that would help increase my heart rate variability. And so it spit it out. I said, I want to do it 3 days a week. So it spit it out like my warm up, my lifting, and then my finisher every day. And so I'm going to start this new workout today to see if I can make a positive impact. And without the data, and then without AI, like analyzing the data for me and then spitting that out, I never would get there. And so we just can't hate on it. It's just making us better people.
100%. You would sit there on your to-do list for a week of like, all right, I need a
Yeah.
workout plan, a diet, and whatever else I'm doing. And that's such a barrier to entry to this stuff. And like you just type it in there and now you've removed the barrier and you're off and running. Hopefully it
Yeah.
works out well.
I
Hope you're
know.
getting
Me
good
too.
sleep data on that thing. I always track my sleep and it's crazy sometimes.
Yeah, yes. Okay, so let's talk about cost and coverage. We talked about money at the opening of this episode, and I think so many of us, that's like the lagging indicator, right? What we're spending on this, but we're not really understanding utilization. So many businesses are struggling to balance affordable coverage with quality benefits. What strategy or options do you recommend to help a business maximize value while controlling costs?
Yeah, I would be naive to sit here and talk about values and services and all these things. Cost sits at the center of all of these solutions and what a business is doing as it relates to health insurance. I think you said earlier that it's typically the number two line item on the budget and the expenditure for the employer. And so it's taken very seriously, which is great. But to me, and I kind of talked about it at the beginning, we had the ACA that came to be. And that kind of it removed a lot of barriers as we're talking about like an AI to get coverage because historically that was tough when everything was medically underwritten. Part of that, like I said earlier as well, that's kind of become a high risk pool. And what I meant by that was we're seeing the carriers come out with different funding mechanisms. So not just fully insured or the big scary self-insured for the larger employers, which is actually we're seeing come down market. And when that is coming down market, it's done thoughtfully through different funding mechanisms like a hybrid self-insured plan or a level funded plan, which a lot of times we advertise as stair steps to self-insurance for a larger employer. But a lot of times our companies, especially businesses under 100 employees, they think that they need to be on this fully insured because it has all of the walls to protect them against anything, where these hybrid and level funded plans look, act, and feel like a fully insured plan, but they bring some of the potential cost savings that a self-insured plan and some of the control that a self-insured plan brings to the market. And so I think a big thing is to create savings, you have to have control. So if I'm on a fully insured plan, I get my renewal every year from my broker. It's 8%. And we're budgeting 8% every year. And one year I get 10. Well, we can make it work because the next year is going to be 6. That's great if it's going that well. But there's going to come a day where you get to 30%. And then everybody springs into action because we can't afford this. What are we doing? And unfortunately, our clients have these same issues, right? We get these batch of renewals every year when they come out, and some of them are easy conversations and others are really tough. And so we have to get creative, like I've been saying. These carriers have kind of like different business plans within each of the larger carriers. And so United Healthcare, just to pick on them, and we have a lot of business with United Healthcare, but they've got a fully insured plan. They've got UMR, which is sitting on a self-funded TPA chassis. And then they also have, under the UHC umbrella, are their level funded plans and their hybrid plans. And so I think what this does is it gives control where it makes sense back to the employer. But then if there is a surplus in what they've spent on premiums every month compared to their utilization, they get a portion of that money back. So there's incentive there at the employer level to create good consumer habits. And that's where we really like to partner. We don't want to just be a vendor. We sending that renewal every year. We want to partner with our clients and look at data throughout the year, because if we're on this, say a level funded plan and we get data that, there's been 38 visits to the emergency room and 5 to the urgent care and 0 telehealth, there's probably a moment here for education, because we're going to see that consumerism reflected on our next renewal, because our loss ratio is going to be much worse. And so I think taking into account some of these things, getting good consumer habits in place, and then the employer being able to share in some of this, the overspend, if you will, creates good consumer habits and really empowers the employer and the employees to go out and do a better job at being consumers. But then you said earlier is like, we're independent, we're flexible, but we also offer the captives and the consortiums. I think those are great, especially as a bridge. This is all underwritten. And of course, we're going to make sure it makes sense before we make a move, but it builds in a lot of the protections that a self-insured plan doesn't have. We're always very careful to use that nasty self-insured terminology with the company because it does have a bad rap historically, or it's very scary, it's a gamble. But some of these new things, the captives, the consortiums, the level funded, there's a lot of protections built in that also are giving you the ability to save money on the front end or in return if you have a good year. And then, Kerri, I think, and you could really expand on this, but kind of being a pseudo financial advisor. Are we making the right decisions with the plans that we're offering? So a lot of times our clients are buying a higher deductible or keeping a low deductible or offering a high deductible health plan paired with a low deductible PPO, but then putting in things like ICHRAs or HSAs or FSAs. We're a world of acronyms in the benefits world. So health reimbursement arrangements, health savings account, flexible spending accounts, dependent care spending accounts to help fund some of the spend for an employee at a tax efficient level, buying a higher deductible. So the net cost for the employer is a little bit different. And then supplementing what the employee feels with an HRA sometimes can help control costs. And then the people that are really savvy like to maximize their HSA every year and sign up for that high deductible, the qualified plan, so they don't have to pay for their Medicare premiums down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got money sitting in an account that I hopefully will never have to use. But I actually just added for my team LSAs, a lifestyle savings account. And that's new. I haven't seen that. And I had an organization present that to me. And I was like, gosh, that's so interesting. So my folks can use my LSA funds for an Aura Ring or any of my health recommendations that I personally have. So I set up a platform and they can use those funds. And there's far less, like almost no regulation behind LSA spending. And so that's what I'm doing from a more unique side of things outside of medical, but individuals could use it on the marketplace to buy like an individual, like let's say Stride Health Plan or things like that. They can use it for those too, but there's so many options out there. I think because I've been around it for over 20 years, I just feel more confident, likely because of my days in an insurance agency. I saw how the sausage is made. So I don't mind being a little riskier in it. There's so many times that I will look at an employer's benefits and I'm like, what the heck are you doing? You don't have to spend all this. Like, who told you you have to offer all of this? And, I don't know if it's because they're nervous or because they had a broker that was just like, trying to make all the money. I don't know what the deal is, but somebody has to take ownership for that and help them plan for the future. And the cool thing is being a good steward with your resources gives you space to really give the benefits that your employees truly want. It sets you up to be able to run those surveys and ask your employees, like, what benefits do you like of ours that you would quit if they went away? Which ones do you feel like we're missing out on that you see other employers have that we don't, that, you're keeping your eye on or whatever. And then you can truly act on your employees' data and do the next right thing for your employee population instead of feeling strapped to your current plan, because none of us are stuck. Like there are options out there. I just think a lot of people feel nervous about making the change.
From your experience, is that something you're bringing to your clients from a consulting standpoint, or is that something that you're a lot of times seeing them do on their own, or kind of this collecting data and then making decisions based on a poll from employees, if you will?
I'm doing it for a lot of my clients. I'll ask them like, what do your employees want? And most of the time they might have a few anecdotal thought processes like, oh, we lost this person because they said that this employer, had this or whatever. Most of it's anecdotal. So I'm usually like, let's put together a quick survey. I mean, there's nothing wrong with throwing out a quick survey monkey and just seeing like, what do your employees actually think? And I just take all of their current offerings and ask questions around every single one of their current offerings. And you know what they find out? Most of their employees could give a crap about what they're, they'll be like, oh, I don't care about that coverage. But the employer will be like, oh, we offer this one for free. It's on the house. And it's like, okay, is anyone using that? When's the last time you talked about it? I had one employer that one of their employees was like, I wish we had a maternity leave. And I was like, oh, you have short-term disability. And they were like, I don't pay for that. I'm like, it's free actually. Your employer actually covers short-term disability. It kicks in on day 7. Like, here's what, but nobody's educating them on that. And so I'm like, hey, you're giving them such a good benefit. Let's talk about it. Let's not say we have a short-term disability policy that's on the house because nobody knows what that means. Let's say maternity leave or, catastrophic catastrophic event, here's how we care so much about you that we are involved in your personal life, and then let's market it correctly. That's a huge win. We didn't even have to add a coverage. All we had to do is educate on a current coverage, and there all the female population was like, "Ooh, this place is awesome." I'm like, you've literally had that the whole time you've been here.
Just change a few words, right?
Yeah.
It resonates. I like you just said, and I've harped on it, I know, education. I mean, I feel like 10 years ago, technology, especially benefits enrollment technology, came down market. I think, the large and the very large employers have had it for years, but it came down to companies as small as like 10 or less, I think 10 years ago. And I always, if a company doesn't have that in place, even if they don't think their group's going to use it, I think it's still important because spouses, children will help use it. But as you talk about all these benefits, I mean, I remember the days when you would walk in and they would offer medical, dental, vision, the Aflac policies, the work site, and you name it. And you're handing an enrollment form for every one of these benefits to somebody. And it's like, I don't even know where to start. I'm definitely not going to sign up for these other things, or they think they have to fill them all out. So they end up signing up and then their insurance for, and then they're taking themselves off of the plan. I think implementing the technology makes all of this a lot easier, especially education. Like we could post a quick video or a one-page slide of like what is covered by a short-term disability plan, and the top item is going to be maternity, right? I mean, but people don't get it because it's called short-term disability. And so I think implementing that, the education, the technology holistically creates a better experience for all employees.
Yeah, I agree. Why have it if you're not going to encourage people to utilize it?
Yeah.
So let's shift gears and talk a little bit about the boring stuff, the regulatory landscape. So with ongoing changes in healthcare regulations, which literally feel like it's by the day, what should business owners be paying attention to right now in this space?
Yeah, all the red tape, the fun part of this whole industry and every industry. I think this is always evolving, right? As we bring new administrations into Washington and all the different things that happen at state levels, federal levels, it's always changing. Right now, I mean, if we're really thinking in the past, like historically, the last many years, obviously COBRA's been in place since the 80s, and that's still something. The COBRA is something that's really hard for employers, especially when we're paper driven and things like that, or understanding the rules and what the requirements are. So I lead with that because it's the age old problem or opportunity. But I think in today's world, what we're seeing, the big one right now is mental health parity enforcement. And so making sure that, our benefit plans are supporting substance abuse and eating disorders, mental crisis episodes, workplace health, just as we have on the hospitalization and the inpatient and outpatient care for diseases and sickness and, different things, is making sure that, and there are regulations now around mental health, that we're offering similar copays, out-of-pockets, deductibles, and things like that to support mental health as much as the traditional health model that we had in place. And then there's a big focus now on price transparency and compliance around that. And so health plans now have to kind of really expand on the tools that are available for employees to understand the cost of care. This is really beneficial when we start getting into these level funded plans and hybrid plans, self-insured plans, because there's incentive there to save money, right? Or if we're on the high deductible health plan, because we're paying first dollar deductible expense. And so having different tools at the health plan level are important. That if my doctor says that, hey, you need to get an MRI on your knee, something's off, make an appointment down in the basement of the hospital and you can go do it right now. And I think people are getting wiser to the fact that, one, does that make the most sense? And then two, having the tools and the confidence in themselves to go out and actually explore this. I think years ago we say, yeah, great, I'll go down there and do it. That MRI might cost $1,300, where the standalone imaging facility next door can take you tomorrow and it's going to be, $400. And so understanding those things is very important, and it's now becoming more law. But I think also the tools being made available at the plan level, whether it's the employer sponsoring the plan or the health insurance carrier, utilize the technology, go online to their apps and their websites and different things like that, because we have to lay out what the cost is going to be for all these different procedures and different things that we're going to have in the hospital system, from an X-ray to an MRI to preventative shots, or you name it. And then when our care expands into more specialty, is understanding what can I do to not only help my employer's pockets, but help my pockets and my wallet as I make decisions about my care. So that price transparency is continuing to grow. There's some really cool technology out there for it. I know that, like, personally, we use not only a virtual wallet where all of our ID cards are just on an app because nobody can keep up with all those ID. Some people are really good at it, but also having tools to go in, whether it's our health plan or a third-party app, to say, hey, I need to go see whatever the specialty is, and then put in your zip code, and here's all the places within a 20-mile radius, and here's the cost for each place with their star rating for that particular procedure. So the price transparency is huge. And then one of my favorites, because we get involved a lot in ACA reporting. And ACA reporting and COBRA are two things that anytime I've ever mentioned that with a prospect or a client or any group, it's always this cringeworthy thing. Nobody's ever like, oh, it's great. We love the way that we're doing COBRA, and ACA is my favorite thing to do every February. So we're deep in those conversations right now, ACA reporting. But the Employer Reporting Improvement Act, which came out here at the beginning of 2025, is alleviating some of the pressures on the employer to get the information out. So one, from a simplicity perspective for the employer, is tracking down 10 validation numbers or tax ID numbers, which is essentially a person's social. We're now kind of able to start using more date of birth in place of socials and different things like that. So that's great. We've been able to do that on the self-funded side for a while with dependents and things. But I think the big one here is not having to furnish a paper form to every recipient of the 1095. For your listeners, hopefully you know what a 1095 is. If you don't, enjoy the bliss. But you can now offer the furnishing of the forms to employees from an electronic standpoint, and you can publish that we're not going to send these out unless you make a request for one. And if the employee requests one, you can just email it over to them, which is a big step, because mailing all this stuff 3 years ago, a lot of companies, or 2 years ago, a lot of companies still mailed all this to the IRS as well as each recipient. Now it's mandated that you e-file with the IRS if you had over 10 forms. And so the mail becomes really challenging. And so that's just something that they've made a little bit easier, which we're thankful for.
Yes. And it doesn't sound like a big deal to print out some forms and get them in the mail, but there are so many organizations that struggle with that. And just to mention COBRA, like, if Jesse said COBRA and you're like, are we doing that? Like, yeah, you have to do that if you have a health plan. And one of the first things you should ask your broker is, do you do that for me? Do I do that? Does the insurance carrier do that? And we talked about UHC earlier a little bit, United Healthcare. If you fill out a form, they can do it for you, but you have to request that they do it. You have to kind of jump through some hoops and get a form filled out. So if you don't know who's doing it, stop and ask some questions right now, because probably no one's doing it and you're out of compliance. And all it would take is one employee to be a little disgruntled and call you on that. And now you've got some fines and some back pay. So I would dig into your COBRA if you're not. That's COBRA. And shoot me an email if you need help with it, and I can point you in the right direction. So let's close on innovation. Are there any emerging trends? We've talked about some uniqueness, but are there any emerging trends or innovations in the healthcare space that you think could significantly impact how benefits are approached when it comes to a small to mid-sized business?
There's things always coming to be in the market and people getting creative. Kerri, one question for you. Have any of your clients or anybody in your circle asked you or talked to you about the ICHRA?
Yeah. Which, a couple of years back when I was COO of an insurance firm, we were going down the ICHRA path. And so, yes, but I'd say most employers are blissfully ignorant when it comes to ICHRAs, but it's going to be a good option, I feel like, in some spaces.
Yeah, I ask you because we're getting more and more of that. We actually have a few partners in the ICHRA, which acronym again, ICHRA, which is an individual coverage health reimbursement type of plan, where employees, trying to simplify this. So essentially, it's a private marketplace similar to what the ACA put forth for individuals, in which it's sponsored by an employer and it is ACA compliant. But the organization, the billing, the consolidation of all the things that have to be done from an invoicing perspective, a care perspective, are done at the employer level, similar to a group full-on health plan. Those are gaining some interest and some steam, I think. So we've had a number of our clients and prospects and things that we've explored the ICHRA with alongside the group health plans, whether fully insured or self-insured. And we kind of like to go to the whole market and say, hey, here's the whole picture. Now let's make a decision that makes the most sense. But I think, call it innovation. It's a different approach. I think the ICHRA is one of those things that it creates some headway, and people are wanting to explore it because so often we see these businesses paying their employees back or reimbursing them for going to the healthcare.gov, the exchange, and paying for a plan with post-tax dollars, and then writing a check to the employee is not the most legal thing that you can do. You're also not reaping the tax benefits, and neither is your employee. The ICHRA kind of solves for that if there's interest. So that's something we're exploring. Telehealth and virtual care is a huge innovation in the space. I mean, so often the carriers are literally providing a $0 copay if you go and use the telehealth that each one makes available, and they all use a different vendor or they have a proprietary solution, but telehealth is great. I mean, now if you've got a broken bone, don't log on and do that on your phone. But if you've got a cold, or we hear a number of different things, if you've got poison ivy, if you've got, a growth on your skin, I don't know, I don't want to get too detailed, but if it's not urgent or emergent, a lot of times telehealth's a great solution. Hey, I've got strep throat, I think, like your phone camera is pretty powerful and you can do a lot of things that the doctor then is going to be able to help with. And if you're not familiar with telehealth, it's one of those things that I can log on and I can be face to face with a doctor, whether he's in California or New York or somewhere in between, in 10 minutes, and they can prescribe things through that experience and different things. Or they may say, hey, whatever it is looks really bad. I think you need to get an appointment, but at least you tried. And the stories I hear so often is I woke up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night and I knew I had a fever. Who wants to get up and go to the emergency room? Like, get your phone out, get on there, set it up ahead of time so you're not doing that while you're sick. But telehealth and virtual care has been great, especially from an ease of access for the employee, and from a monetary standpoint for the employee and the employer, it's great. And then innovation, Kerri, we talked about it earlier. I mean, AI is coming from a number of angles, whether it's administration to cost to better outcomes, better care. I think that's all coming. And then a lot of value-based insurance where we're rewarding employees for getting preventive care. We'll give you $50 if you go and get your physical once a year. And some of the carriers are even paying for this now because they know if we do that, going back to proactive care, long-term our spend is going to be down. And so a lot of those, there's some plans now that are copay only plans that are available in the market, which actually we're here in St. Louis, but we service most of Missouri and Illinois. We are slow adopters as a state and a city to these type of things. They're just taking off in other markets. And we actually had a person in last week talking about these copay plans that are $0 on the preventive side. And then you kind of pick what you want to do as you get care throughout the year, and literally lays out a cost for, like I was saying earlier, at this place, your MRI is X, or the X-ray at Metro Imaging is Y, or whatever it may be. Really cool thing. It's kind of like I've always wanted on like a cable package. It's like, can I just pick the channels I want and make this a lot easier? So that's kind of what that is in a sense. And then just the bin admin tech offerings and integrations. That's if you're not using a technology today, and if you are using a technology and it's not integrated, and I mean integrated with the IRS for your reporting, with your insurance carriers, that's totally seamless, with your payroll vendor, with your COBRA, which I hope everybody's got a COBRA strategy in place. That's the biggest thing is the feedback we've gotten for years is I want everything in one place. That's really hard for a small business. Any business that's under probably 500 employees. That just doesn't exist in a way that's as seamless and efficient as it sounds. If it was, we would all be buying that stock and they'd be worth $1 trillion and it would be the next big thing. But what we're doing is we are tethering systems together in a seamless way that you're getting the best in class from all these industries, whether plugging in payroll with bin admin, with TPA services like your COBRA, HSA, FSA, and it feels like it's one place due to single sign-on and other capabilities, but delivering the best possible experience for the employees.
Yeah, that's huge. And I agree. Why doesn't a tech vendor make that happen? without all of these APIs. But you know what? In the meantime, we'll piece together what we can. Well, Jesse, I've appreciated having you on the pod today. Anything else you want to add before we break?
I would just say, to your point, I think we could pull those together if HIPAA wasn't such a strong thing, but with HIPAA, it's hard.
Yeah, that's true.
No, this has been awesome. I appreciate the conversation. Kerri, it's always good to share thoughts and ideas with you, and I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, well, folks, we love that you tuned in today and hopefully learned a little bit more when it comes to the complex conversation of benefits administration. And in the show notes today, I will put where you can get a hold of Jesse, where you can learn more about Caravus and anything else that we mentioned during the show. We know that digging into this information can feel like chaos. And we know that you're running your business. And when it comes to the benefit side of things, we just want someone to be able to tell us what to do. But don't waste the chaos. Jump in there, learn the information, truly dig in, figure out how it's impacting your employees, what they really want, and then how it's impacting your bottom line. That work is worth your time. So don't waste the chaos. Embrace it. Till next time.